Hey guys, Ben here with Oddly Armed, and today we're going to be doing another disassembly video, this time on an IWI Galil ACE, mine being a first generation. So let's go ahead, tear into it, and see how this guy works. Alright, so let's go ahead and kick things off by removing our Galil magazine. So again, typical Rock and Lock magazine, 4556, specific to the Galil, but we'll go ahead and set that aside. And then just like any AK, the next step is going to be removing our top cover. Now with the Galil, the ACE and the older versions, this is a bit more difficult than on typical AKs because this is where your sights are, so this has to be fit extremely tight to the receiver. So you'll see our button in the back here is fairly significantly longer than it is on typical AK, but we'll go ahead and press that in. And then this is going to take significantly more force than it does on a typical AK to remove our dust cover. But if we go ahead and pop it off there, then we can see our dust cover. And here's the Galil dust cover as well as my AKM dust cover. And you can see overall designs are fairly similar. However, in the back, you can see this reinforcing plate on the Galil top cover, which that actually fits tighter into the receiver so that it doesn't lose zero. And then up front, you can see there's also a little divot there and a dovetail, which kind of fits into the gas piston or the gas tube on the Galil to make sure that it maintains zero. And next up, we're going to go ahead and remove our recoil spring assembly. So you'll see this has some extra bits when compared to a typical AK one, but removing it is the exact same. So we'll go ahead and press forward on that till it runs out of its track. And then we can go ahead and pull it all out the back of the receiver of the rifle here. So you can see it has a little rubber gasket here on the end, as well as a rubber buffer at the end of its travel. And then if I take my typical AK one, you can see the way it's actually executed on the inside, where this is basically two wires kind of interwoven into each other. This is actually ones that run on the inside of the other one. So it's a little bit different execution and a little bit actually nicer, but works essentially the same way. Now we can go ahead and remove our bolt carrier group. And I'm gonna go ahead and hold the gas piston up front here for a sec because this will actually want to come out right after you remove the bolt carrier, but this is our bolt carrier group, and you can see it's fairly similar to a typical AK, and I'll give you a good look at that here in a sec. All right, so again, disassembly is just going to be typical AK, so we'll press back on the bolt, and then we'll let that cam run out of its channel there, and there we have the bolt and the bolt carrier disassembled here. So you'll see that the bolt carrier and especially the piston up front is different than you'll typically see on an AK. So you'll see this little triangular piece here. If I pull over my AKM, that is not on the AKM one. Now what this does is this actually fits into the gas cylinder itself and helps center it. That's supposed to give it more consistent lockup and better accuracy. Now as far as everything else in the back of the carrier goes, of course our charging handle is going to be on the opposite side here, but internally you can see it's exactly like my AKM. So you have that track running in there for the cam track, and that's basically all there is to see. You even have the tail at the end of the receiver there, but really the same design overall. And here is the bolt for the Galil ACE, and you can see, again, very typical AK. So we'll see the front there. And then I'll go ahead and roll in my AKM bolt here, so you'll see pretty much everything is executed fairly similarly. There are some differences in it, but they work the exact same way. And on the Galil one, it also has a retained firing pin, which is spring-loaded as well. And next up, we can go ahead and remove the gas cylinder up here. So the gas cylinder is held in by our bolt carrier. So if we remove that, then we can just pull this backwards and up. So you can see it actually runs into little dovetails here that are at the back. And this, I think, is actually a better design overall than just a standard AK. It makes it way easier to disassemble. And then when you look up here, there's really not a whole lot to see. You can see our front sight there as well as the gas block, but that's pretty much all you need to do as far as the gas system disassembly. Taking a look on the inside of the receiver, you can see for the most part it's going to be typical AK. So you have good access here to your chamber and to be able to clean out the locking recesses here in the receiver. Now Galils all use a milled receiver, so you can see this is a very, very high quality, well-made receiver. However, it is a bit on the heavy side as well. Now you can see on this one, being a 5.56 model, that has a bolt hold open. We have the bolt hold open notch right here on the right side. And that just lifts up a little lever out there on the inside, which catches your bolt carrier group. Now on this, you can see the ejector is right here, actually milled into the receiver itself. If I bring over my stamped AKM receiver here, you can see essentially everything works the exact same way. However, the execution itself is going to be different because this is a stamped receiver where you basically have riveted in rails and stuff on the inside of the receiver versus a milled receiver where everything's actually cut into the receiver itself. And real quick, I'll give you a better look inside of the receiver itself at our trigger group. So you can see we do have our safety selector on the left side of the rifle, one of the really cool features of the Galil ACE. And so the linkages on the inside with the safety are going to be quite a bit different here than it is going to be on a typical AK. However, it's nice and easy to use, easy to get to. Your trigger itself, if I take the safety off, is going to be typical, just standard AK style trigger with the twin hook assembly up there in the front. Really nothing crazy at all going on in here. Typically, I don't do reassembly videos. However, on the Galil, there's actually some tricks to it, and it can be pretty difficult your first time doing it if you haven't done it before. Now, putting your gas tube as well as your bolt carrier group back into the rifle, I actually like to start with the gas tube over the piston here. And we'll go ahead and get it started here at the back of the receiver. We'll just get the bolt carrier group into its rails. And then you'll see there's the dovetail up here up front that your piston actually, or your gas tube rides into. So we'll go ahead and get it started there. And then up at the front, you just want to make sure it goes all the way forward there. And we'll go ahead and push our bolt carrier group home. Now this is the fun part, and that's getting the top cover back on the rifle. So the spring, again, is pretty typical here as far as AKs go. We'll go ahead and get started here. Now, actually getting the dust cover back on is the difficult part. The best way to do this that I found is you actually want to press forward onto your spring assembly here, and then you actually want to press forward and down. So you'll see this buffer will go all the way up till this little cut in the receiver. You press down from there, and this will actually not get in the way at this point. So this is the fun part because the top cover is so tight. So we'll go ahead and get it started in the front. And then the best way to do this is just get both of your thumbs on there. I'll give you a look here in the back. Just put pressure on it, and then it'll go ahead and pop into place. Now you'll see our spring is not, the button isn't popping through the back of the dust cover here. So to get that to pop through, just grab your charging handle, run it, and it'll center it back up, and your dust cover will be back together. And that is a Galil ACE fully disassembled. So thank you guys for checking out the video. Please check out my full review on the Galil ACE. Like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stuff coming up.